You are listening to Renewed Day by Day with Pastor LaRosa. He will continue the lesson about the visitors of Christmas with a topic about the wise men who arrived in Jerusalem. Here is Pastor Ralph.
Let's look at the kingmakers visit the king. Okay, now I might spoil your Christmas a little bit, but we're going to take a good look at these people, see who they really are, and we're going to see that they're kingmakers, and that's why Matthew emphasizes it so much. So listen carefully, a little history lesson here. Okay, in Matthew 2, 1 and 2. Now after this, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, okay? Some people estimate this is from 6 months to maybe a year after, some even as far as 2 years, because that's why Herod killed all the babies 2 years old and under. Okay, so this is not this is not when he was born in a manger. This is later. There's many reasons for that. He's called a young child and not a baby, for one thing. And then this phrase right here. Now after this, and by the way, they went to visit him, the kingmakers, the wise men, the Magi, they went to visit him in a house, okay, not a manger. So now after this, Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, Magi. Now some translations say wise men, which is correct, or Magi, and we need to explain where these words come from. Magi from the east, that was probably the Parthian Empire that came out of the Medes and the Persians, okay? There were still a lot of Persians there, but it was called now the Parthian Empire, and they were kind of opposed to the Roman Empire. Okay, let's look at this. So Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem saying, listen carefully now. Imagine, you know what Herod was called? He was called the King of the Jews. He was not, listen to it, it says in the days of Herod the king. He was an Idumean. He was not even a Jew. But Rome gave him that title because he had to do so many things to get that and earn that, including killing people. So he was called the King of the Jews. Now you can imagine, he was a paranoid person. He even had members in his own family killed. He had 10 wives, and he actually had one of them killed. He had about 12 kids, and he actually had one of them killed because he was so paranoid. He was a monster. Some people call him Herod the Monster. Okay? So when he hears this, you can imagine. Look at verse 2. Can you imagine Herod when he heard this? Where is he who is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. Okay? Now, most of the time, and I'll show you, even in our card and in our publication, most of the time you'll see 3 wise men. It's because maybe they had 3 gifts that they offered. And some huge church has even given them names, claimed they found their skulls in the 10th or 11th century. And of course, all of that's just rumor and tradition, has nothing to do with the scriptures. The fact is, some people estimate there may have been 12 to even, I've heard R.B. Thiem say up to 50, okay? And then they had a cavalry, a Persian cavalry with them, probably about 80 on horses. And this was a big deal when they rode into town because they were kingmakers. Okay, so look at verse 2. For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. Now another thing that's tradition is that they follow this star. They saw the star in the east, and then they saw the star when it was over the house where Jesus was, but they didn't follow this star. They knew where it was, and I'm going to explain it to you in a moment. Okay, they came to worship him. That's a very important phrase. These were God-fearing Persians, Gentiles. And many of and look at this, the people that were right there and should have known better because they have the scripture, they're Jewish people, Jewish scribes, Jewish chief priests. They're not the one this was revealed to because they are Christ rejectors. Okay, they have become very politically corrupt. Okay, let's take a look at it. Who are the Magi? Who are the wise men? Okay, the Greek is magos or magoi in the plural. Magi is probably the best translation. It is not a translatable word, actually. It's simply the name of a certain tribe of people that started as Medes, okay, just like the tribe of Levi. They were a priestly group, and then they became something else. We'll talk about it in a minute. Actually, by this time, they were very political. Okay, now remember the Medes existed, and they were a strong people before the Babylonian Empire and before the Medes and the Persians who took over the Babylonian Empire. Okay, so the Medes, like Levi and Israel, were a tribal group, but they became very, very prominent. The best translation is probably Magi. This is where we get the word magician from. We get the modern word magician. It's an English corruption. They didn't do magic tricks, nothing like that, like you think of a magician today. But that's where we get that word.
Thank you for listening to Renewed Day by Day with Pastor Ralph LaRosa. Join us again tomorrow for the continuation of the lesson called The Visitors of Christmas. God bless you, stay healthy, and Merry Christmas!